You guys, something crazy just happened. Something so crazy just happened. I'm going to have to start all over. That's crazy. I just read and was getting into my description and my whatever you call my analysis, and it stopped and disappeared, and it looks like I don't think it was reported. It was just immediately taken down for nudity. I thought maybe because I was talking about violence or something, because I just was talking about the fact that Jesus was slapped in the face, so I was like, oh, maybe it's too much for Facebook, but for nudity? And usually that sort of thing isn't reported. Nobody's even watching at this time for anyone to be reporting it. And Facebook would have to review it first before it being taken down for whatever it was reported for. So it was just taken down for nudity. I don't know about you guys, but my kitty is sleeping peacefully. I obviously would not flash you guys unless it was by mistake, but so crazy. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna have to start all over. I apologize for anyone who was watching and has to listen to this again, but it seems like there's really no active viewers at this time, so I'm restarting, and God willing, it does not get taken down. So bizarre. Goodness, the most serious topic. Anyways, let's start out with a quote. A bolt is shot back somewhere in our breast, and at last, I always mess this up, and a lost pulse of feeling stirs again. The eye sinks inward, and the heart lies plain. And what we mean, we say, and what we would know, we know. A man becomes aware of his life's flow, and hears its winding murmur, and he sees the meadows where it glides, the sun, the breeze. And there arrives a lull in the hot race, where doth forever chase. That flying and elusive shadow rest, an air of coolness plays upon his face, and an unwonted calm pervades his breast. And then he thinks he knows the hills where his life rose, and the sea where it goes, the buried life. Now that I'm thinking about it, is it because I said the word breast? Oh my gosh. I feel like I've said that on here before, but maybe not. Anyways, let's hope to the Lord above that they don't take that the wrong way. Breast can be chest on a male, therefore it is not offensive in any matter. So ridiculous. This is by Matthew Arnold, 1822 to 1888 was his life. Looks like it's from the book The Buried Life. And again, the emotion that comes out of this quote, I'm not going to read it again because it was a bit longer, but it plays on what we are reading here tonight about Jesus's trial and crucifixion, which will come later. But yeah, let's do take 2 here. If it gets taken down again, I'm going to eat my pasta bolognese and post it later. But it's very frustrating. Jesus is put on trial. This is from the book of John, chapter 18, verses 19 through chapter 19, verse 16. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. I have spoken openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple, where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they will know what I said. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest? He demanded. If I said nothing wrong, Jesus replied, testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Cephas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself. So they asked him, You aren't the one of his disciples too, are you? He denied it, saying, I am not. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of a man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him at the garden? Again Peter denied it, and at that moment a rooster began to crow. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the place of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would have not handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and the chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You may say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world is to testify the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. Within this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe, and went up to him again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. Once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. He went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize that I have the power to either free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat on the judge's seat at a place known as the Stone Pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. For it was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified, so the soldiers took charge of Jesus. Yes, as I had mentioned before, this is a lot to uncover here, but I'm only going to touch on a few points. A lot of times people defend, or I just heard in theory that people, defend Caesar because he was really kind of vouching for Jesus, but not really. And again, I'm going to speak on the dichotomy between like Jesus and his people and the Israelites and the Roman Empire, which was ruling at the time. It just didn't really make much sense to me that Caesar really didn't have any clue who Jesus was. He was asking him these questions. But what I can maybe recall, especially after reading this a second time, is he did know who Jesus was. He was just playing dumb, and he was trying to offend Jesus. This is what I can gauge. He was trying to offend him. by, asking him these questions, like I said, like, who are you? I have no idea who you are. But, even as we know, the King Herod before, I mean, he wasn't anywhere in the Roman Empire, but King Herod knew about Jesus even before his birth, right? So, or, around the same time as his birth, because people had told them. So you would think, I mean, with all the things going on in Israel at the time, that the people governing Israel, as, political leaders, you would think they have some clue as to who Jesus is. So I think it was really just a play on ignorancy on Pilate's part, and he wanted to act like he had no idea. But something here, he's very mocking of Jesus, the fact that he allowed his soldiers to put like a purple robe on him and a crown of thorns. It's just extra. Like, why go through all that trouble? I understand that they may have embarrassed the other prisoners as well, like in other crucifixion cases, but in this case it just seems to be like a bit over the top, and he was making a mockery out of Jesus, and he was, just encouraging it all together and kind of riling the people up for a reason. Even though he's saying, my hands are clean of this, I really want no part, he is also allowing for all of this to happen. If he really did have power as governor, he could have prevented it, to be honest. I think also to the fact that the Jewish leaders at the time, the Jewish leaders of thought, something that I do want to mention, they had these prophecies, they have these scriptures that are written about this happening. Really, we were going to learn with the crucifixion story that everything has been recorded and everything has been present at this time. It's been laid out in front in prophecy and in scripture. So the Jewish leaders of thought really had to be, in fact, both blind and deaf spiritually to not understand that what they were prophesying about for years and what the other prophets were prophesying about, they really had to be blind and deaf spiritually to not understand that this was, in fact, Jesus, or else they would not have condemned him for this crime. On the other note, they could also understand that this is Jesus, but they have, for them to not to have empathy and for them to understand the gravity of what's unfolding, they really just had to be, again, ignorant. And I don't know what's going on with this Wi-Fi now. Now my Wi-Fi just doesn't even want to work. Aw. It's crazy. Hopefully you didn't cut out too much, but I'm about losing my mind. Something that I do want to mention that is very, very important. I'm just going to assume that the Wi-Fi is working. The hypothesis that I had discussed before with Judas spiritually entering Jesus and kind of absorbing some of the shock and some of the pain of this moment is a real thing. I don't want you to think that, I'm pulling that out of thin air. I wouldn't, say it multiple times if it wasn't something that was a true thought, right? A valid thought. So to also back that up and to support that frame of thinking, I read to you this part here. So, Jesus is advocating for himself in this moment. These are Jesus' words. He's saying, I always taught in the synagogues or the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they will know what I said. The officials then slapped him in the face. When you say, if I said anything wrong, I testify to it as what is wrong. Whatever, testify to it. He's like, but if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? And then that's not the first time he was slapped in the face. He was slapped in the face again. Let me go ahead and go down a little bit. So that's the first time. The second time, again, Pilate is asking him all these questions. He's asked, and Jesus is responding, what is it I have done, right? And he's explaining to him, he's advocating for himself, my kingdom is not of this world. He's being honest, saying some honest things here. 'Cause, 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 Where's that time? I don't know why I just lost it. Okay, here it is. Here's the moment of truth here. Pilate took Jesus, had him flogged first. The soldiers twisted a crown together of thorns and they put it on his head. And they made him look gaudy and ridiculous, making a mock out of him. And they slapped him in the face again for the second time. At that moment, that's where that spiritual transfer happens. Jesus has already been flogged. He's been mocked. He's been slapped again and again. It's something heartbreaking for the God above to be watching personally. It's completely heartbreaking. So at that moment, that spiritual transfer, Judas takes on Jesus's pain and a lot of Jesus's suffering in this time. And the reason I can say that is because I have knowledge of this, but also this is something that supports it here. He says in line 11 in chapter 19, this moment, right? So first he ignores Pilate because Pilate's asking, where do you come from? And then he doesn't answer. He's like, do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you realize I have the power? And then, right, kind of the spirit, in Judas-like spirit, somebody speaks up in the body of Jesus. He's saying, would you have no power over me if it was not given to you from above? Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. So that line right there really speaks to what I was saying, because Judas was feeling extremely, extremely guilty to the point of ending his own life and putting himself to death. So imagine, sitting in the kingdom with God, right? And his son is being beaten and mocked and everything. Wouldn't you think Judas in his guilt would be like, send me back, right? Send me back so I can endure this for him. Because he says something here. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. That doesn't seem like Jesus speaking on the fact that, you should have had Judas or whatever. That doesn't seem like Jesus bringing up Judas, because he has awareness that Judas had killed himself. So that doesn't seem, in Jesus's right mind to say something like, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. And he is referring to Judas in this moment. He could also be referring to, I guess, the Jewish leaders, but, that is also another look. Thank you for whoever is pointing that out. But yes, that could be another concept there. But just to kind of play on what I'm saying, because it just does not seem logical to me that God would actually let all of this happen. I digress. I digress. And if he did, good on whoever had to absorb that pain, because it was just a time. And really, a lot of people at this time were crucified. Like I mentioned, it was a common practice. It was a common practice. It's not like Jesus was the only one, because there were also 2 others with him getting crucified that day. And it's just kind of sickening, honestly. It's sickening, because the Jewish leaders were they're preparing for the Passover. This is like where all their wives are at home, or their family members are at home, preparing for a religious feast. And then this is the day that they choose to turn Jesus in. It just is absolutely ridiculous. And then the Sabbath being the next day, which we will talk about. As you can see, I'm enraged. I'm angry. But it's hard to be angry when we are happy and alive. But yes, this is really it, you guys, for right now. I'm really just thinking of eating some pasta and taking a chill pill. And we are going to talk about the next topic, which is the crucifixion. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Maybe we'll just do it tomorrow. But yes, I think I finished everything. But anyways, I hope you have a great night. Thank you for listening, and peace be with you. Bye.